Hello and welcome to today's webinar on how to create a social media strategy you'll actually use. Before we dive into today's webinar, we are going to cover a few housekeeping items. So first and foremost, we are recording our webinar today and it will be available once we wrap. And we also will be doing a Q&A at the end. So if you have any questions, feel free to submit them at any point throughout the presentation, and we'll get through as many as possible at the end. Okay, and to properly introduce myself, my name is Tiffany Fowle. I am one of the content marketers here at Bitly, based in our San Francisco office. And as part of the work that I do here, I manage Bitly's social media presence. So we have very active communities across all of our social channels, and I get to engage with our users on each one of them. Before Bitly, I worked in content marketing at an ed tech company based here in San Francisco. Prior to that, I was a freelance content creator. And in both of those positions, social media was a huge focus of my work. So I'm very excited to be here today to chat with you about the most critical piece in any social media marketer's role, which is, of course, the strategy. And I am also joined by our Director of Sales here at Bitly, Jessica Peluso. Jessica, did you want to tell us a little bit more about what you do?
Sure, Tiffany, thanks. So I'm the Senior Global Director of Sales at Bitly, and I am based out of our New York City location. I help customers maximize digital initiatives by embedding short branded call to action links across all of their communications. I've gotten to work with customers of all sizes as they begin to explore the various ways in which links are being leveraged across their organization, and I'm excited to talk about this topic today, as many customers come to us early on their journey and are looking for ways to create a social media strategy.
All right, thank you. So now let's flow into our agenda today. First and foremost, we're going to start by giving you a very quick introduction to Bitly for those of you who aren't very familiar with our company. And then we're going to move straight into why we're here today, why every brand needs a social media strategy. And once we've discussed that, we're going to talk about how to get started with creating a strategy. And that starts with the first critical step, which is the audit. Then we'll move into how to set goals and metrics, where to even start with that, what are good goals to set, and why it's important. From there, we're going to be talking about how to select the right channels for your brand, because of course you don't have to be on every channel, and we want to make sure that you're choosing the right ones for your brand. And finally, we're going to talk about the tools that you're going to be using to execute upon your strategy. This is so important, streamlining your workflow to make sure that you're being as efficient as possible and making sure that you have everything necessary in order to run a great social media program. And again, we will be taking questions at the end of our presentation, so submit them along the way, and we'll do the Q&A at the very end. And that's what we have for you today. So without further ado, I'm going to hand it off to Jessica so she can get us started.
Yeah, absolutely. So since our audience today is full of social media marketers, I'm going to guess that everyone knows us for our link shortener. Very simply, Bitly takes long links and we make them short. You may also have heard of Bitly because we integrate with many of the most used social media tools like Buffer, Sprout Social, Sendable, Sprinkler, and CoSchedule. Most of their tools have their own link shortener, however, they aren't branded to your organization. By integrating Bitly into these tools, you can benefit from their streamlined services as well as from the branding available through Bitly. But that's not all we offer. We're a complete link management platform with the tools, analytics, and insights you need to maximize the impact of every digital initiative. To give you an idea of how some of our customers are using Bitly links in their day-to-day, we've listed some of our favorite brands below. You'll see Hermes Parcel, one of the largest package delivery services in the UK, is using us as an SMS tracking communication solution to enable them to send messages out to millions of customers. And they do this by leveraging the API to help scale and improve their customer experience. You'll also see Nike. They provide a seamless customer experience across all of their social media pages using branded Bitly links. And then you'll notice Hustle. Hustle is also creating and sharing branded links to understand and leverage conversion data so that they can measure the ROI and the impact of their SMS campaigns. We work with brands to find the right Bitly solution for them depending on their goals. For example, many come to us because they want to understand how they can stand out from their competitors across social media, or use Bitly to create unique short links at scale for their referral and influencer marketing programs. These are just some of the ways brands can leverage Bitly to meet their goals. Throughout our presentation today, we'll share other ways you can leverage Bitly to execute on your social media strategy. Speaking of that strategy, I'm going to turn it over to Tiffany now so she can get started with the webinar.
Great, thank you so much. And with that, let's go ahead and just dive in. So, I want to start by talking about why we're talking about this topic to begin with. So, we hear the phrase harness the power of social media a lot, and we're told that it's more important than ever before for businesses to incorporate social into their broader marketing strategy. But why is that? So we know that social is a really great way to build awareness for your brand, to stand out from competition, to communicate authority, build relationships with prospects and customers, provide support, the list goes on. And with the internet and social media specifically being so saturated with brands in nearly every industry imaginable, we hear a lot of brands asking an even more important question, which is how? And that's really the $1,000,000 question, because in the current state of social media for business, brands can no longer just publish posts and hope that they're getting into their followers' feeds. And to understand why, we have to take a look at what's changed in social media over the years. Social media became so widely used by individuals and by businesses that the information being shared it was simply too much for every person on social to receive every bit of information the people they followed shared out. And as a result of this, platforms like Facebook and Twitter, they had to make adjustments to their algorithms. And algorithms are responsible for deciding who gets served what content and when. And this has been a process that has evolved over the years, and it's one that's going to continue to evolve over time. While every platform's algorithm is different and constantly changing, we do know that most seem to prioritize relevant, engaging content in one way or another. So, for example, the team at Buffer, which, as many of you probably know, is a social media management tool, released a report earlier this year that stated that Twitter's timeline algorithm serves its users' content first by rank, so meaning those that are recent and relevant. Then they serve them in case you missed it content, followed by the remaining tweets in reverse chronological order. So rather than just simply serving a Twitter user every single tweet their followers send out, which again would be way too much, their feed is curated based on these factors. And as another example, Facebook's algorithm uses a number of different signals to determine how content is served to its users. So these factors include average time spent on content, overall post engagement, when a post is shared, the type of post, and how informative that post is. So these, of course, are just two examples, but as you can tell, it's still quite vague. These platforms are never going to go into major detail around how their algorithms work, but the takeaway is that each social media platform has a unique formula that informs its algorithm. So getting people to engage with your brand's content is no longer going to be as simple as just posting it to your social channels. And this is where factors like the extent to which your audience trusts your brand and its content and find it relevant and interesting come into play. Okay, so now let's ask another really important question. Why spend the time creating a social strategy? So in order to stand out, you'll need a social media strategy, period. This means that you have to really fight back that temptation to just start posting without a game plan. And yes, it's true, some people do have success with one-off social media posts that gain traction or maybe even go viral. But if you want long-term sustainable success for your brand on social, which is what we'll be talking about today, you definitely need to have a game plan. Social is not just about marketing anymore. So social marketers have much more responsibility, more things to track, more expectations to meet than they have in past. And an example of this is that a growing number of people expect that brands offer customer support via social media, especially on channels like Twitter. People want to be able to send a business a tweet and get a fast response without having to go through a more extensive process, say like having to find a brand's email address, draft an email and send it out to the brand and wait for a response. So at Bitly, we rolled out a formal process for handling our customer support inquiries earlier this year that come through social media. And this was very much in response to a growing number of support questions that we saw coming through Twitter.
Hey Tiffany, thanks for including this slide. I love this stat. I talk to social and digital managers about their strategy every day, but when I ask if they have it documented, the answer is almost always no. If you want to be 313% more successful, simply start by documenting your plan.
Yep, absolutely. Couldn't agree more. So, people have higher and more expectations of brands when it comes to social media, but this is absolutely the most compelling reason to take time to create a social media strategy. We want to be successful. That's the whole point of putting in so much effort. We want to see that our work is paying off and helping us to achieve our goals for social. And that's exactly why a strategy matters. Okay, so let's talk about how to put a strategy in place, and not just any strategy. Today, we'll be focusing on the practical aspects of a social media strategy, the things that will actually matter to your day to day operations. So, basically, not creating processes for the sake of creating processes.
So I know it's overwhelming to try to understand where to start. Many of our customers come to us saying, I know ROI is important, but where do I begin? Everyone wants to increase engagement, clicks, ROI, etc. But when we ask what their current strategy is for social media, no one can usually answer that question. The first critical step to creating a social media strategy is the audit. An audit takes a deep look at what you've done historically and helps you identify areas where you can improve moving forward. This is the basis for all that comes with your brand strategy, so you want to do a really thorough job. To show you how powerful a social media audit can be, here are some of the outcomes. You can identify gaps in your strategy, understand where your brand can improve its consistency, identify your best content, and understand your audience for each of your networks. So this is a very simple template we recommend our customers use when conducting their audits. It's relatively a straightforward process, but the information you collect is extremely valuable. Some of the additional questions you can ask include, are there spikes in growth or any dips that correlate with particular posts? Are there types of content or topics that perform well on one channel but not on others? Are you sharing your content more than once across your channels? In other words, are you leveraging it to the full extent? Once you've conducted your audit and spent time analyzing the results, it's time to put those learnings into practice.
Okay, so let's go ahead and move into selecting the right channels for your brand. So, something you should ask yourself at this stage is, what channels should my brand be on? One thing that's really important to note is that you don't have to be on every channel, especially if you don't have a plan or maybe not even the bandwidth to leverage them. So, for example, it wouldn't be, a very good look for your brand if it was on Twitter, but you hardly ever tweeted. So instead, you should choose a few channels that are going to be amenable to what you're trying to accomplish. And in this section, we're going to break down some of the core social media channels that brands use to market themselves, and very importantly, the expectations people have of those brands across each of those channels. So, this is really important because you're investing your time and your business's resources to engage your audience. So, you'll want to know that your target audience is A, on the channels that you're on, and B, expecting and wanting the content that you're sharing. All right, so let's start with Facebook. Facebook is notorious among marketers for allowing brands very little organic reach on their posts, meaning that for businesses, it's very much a pay to play platform. So it's not something that appeals to all brands. That said, if you take a look at Facebook's audience size and their habits, which we'll jump into in a moment, advertising on this platform can be really compelling. For example, here's a stat published by Sprout Social, another social media marketing tool you'll probably be familiar with. Of those who use Facebook, 74% of them log in daily. In fact, half of them actually check Facebook several times a day. This is huge. So, especially considering that Facebook reported earlier this year that it had almost 1.6 billion daily active users. Um, of course, this number may be slightly smaller in reality, but the big takeaway here is that the majority of the platform's users are logging in every single day, some multiple times a day. So, what are they doing on the channel? According to HubSpot, a large portion of Facebook's users, which are younger consumers, are using the channel to consume content. So, content like online news, business, and lifestyle stories. This is important for you as a marketer to know because it tells us that this is potentially a good platform for our brands to place our most important information. For example, company news, maybe even a product release, things like that. So, if this is the type of content that aligns with what you might share about your brand, or if you have a budget for advertising, you may want to dig into your audience insights on Facebook and see if your target audience aligns with your followers. And if it does, Facebook has the potential to be a really great lever to pull when it comes to engaging your community. So now let's take a look at Twitter. People often think Twitter is a channel brands can use to grow their word of mouth marketing, and that is definitely true. But have you ever seen an influencer post about a brand on Twitter? My guess is that you have, because Twitter is such a popular channel for influencers and brands to run their organic or paid campaigns. But Twitter also provides a lot of outbound marketing opportunities that make it relatively simple for brands to meet their customers where they already are and just hop into relevant conversations that are already taking place. This is a stat from Hootsuite that I really like. People are 31% more likely to recall what they saw on Twitter. This is as opposed to what they recall while browsing online in general. So people are about a third more likely to remember content from Twitter than anywhere else on the internet. This could be because tweets are, they're easily digestible, or it could be indicative of the kind of mindset people have when they visit the platform, right? So they're curious and they're eager to consume new and interesting information. But whatever the case may be, this gives you a foundation for how you think about the kind of content your brand can share on this channel. For example, you may want to share facts about your industry or your brand's unique perspectives relevant to your space. And another point I want to make about Twitter is that it has kind of become the platform people flock to get customer support from brands. So we touched on this a little bit earlier when we talked about the processes that we here at Bitly put in place to meet our users where they already are, in this case Twitter, to provide them support. But this is a really important note because it's become an expectation that brands respond to customer service inquiries on this platform. So if you're considering Twitter as a platform that your brand's going to be on, absolutely have a process in place to handle these sorts of messages. It's also a great opportunity to connect with your users and your customers and to really build trust between them and your brand. According to Brandwatch, companies using Twitter for customer service see a 19% lift in customer satisfaction, and 76% of consumers are likely to recommend a brand following friendly service. So, again, lots of opportunities to improve your customers' relationships with your brand and to build those meaningful connections that are just so important and impactful. Okay, so moving on to Instagram. Instagram has a very active user base. It has 500 million people accessing the app each and every day. So there are lots of opportunities for brands to use this platform to reach their audiences in a very effective way. And that's whether you're an influencer or business or even a business wanting to connect with influencers. I love the stat by the Global Web Index because it's very telling of how people engage on this channel. More than 1/3 of Instagram users have used their mobile devices to buy something online, 70% more likely than people who are not on Instagram. So I personally see ads to purchase things on Instagram all the time. And not only that, but the platform has made it just so extremely easy to go from an ad straight into a purchase flow, which is one of the reasons why it can be so compelling to buy things on this channel. It's so easy. One reason you may want to be on Instagram is that your competitors already are, most likely. According to Instagram Business, approximately 80% of all Instagram users follow a business on Instagram. So usually I don't advocate for being on a social channel just because your competition is, and I definitely don't think it's necessary for businesses of every type and industry, but say for example you're a retail company, then this channel could be really great for you because of that really easy purchase flow and the purchasing habits of this platform's users. And that brings us to the final platform that I'm going to cover here, LinkedIn. LinkedIn is the top performing social media platform for B2B lead generation and has a very niche user base. People who are in the headspace for solutions to their professional and career endeavors. So, in this sense, the content shared on this channel is less saturated by a huge array of topics and it's much more focused on advice, tips and tricks, job postings, and related information. According to LinkedIn Business, 91% of executives rate LinkedIn as their first choice for professionally relevant content. This tells us a lot about the kind of content that's valued across this channel, and therefore the kind of content that your brand can share that would be pertinent to LinkedIn users. So people tend to spend time on social due to boredom, to pass time, to seek entertainment, but they invest time on LinkedIn. And that's really important to note. LinkedIn Business also says that 80% of B2B leads come from this platform. So people are eager to learn and to absorb content that's going to help them build their skill sets and elevate their careers. So if your brand is B2B, LinkedIn can be a gold mine for lead generation and audience engagement. Or it could be a really great recruitment tool for any brand's HR team. All right, so now that you know more about the core channels you can leverage to execute upon your social strategy, the next step is to define your goals and your metrics, which Jessica is going to dive into.
Great, thanks, Tiffany. So where do you start? For every channel your brand is on, you should have a specific set of goals. These goals should be specific and measurable. Take these two goals you see here, for example. You'll want to define the channel, set a very specific goal you can measure, and assign a deadline for meeting that goal. So people often come to us with goals like they want to increase the number of likes they get on Facebook and Twitter. But when we dig into why they want to do these things, they don't always have an answer. What we have to explain is that things like increasing your following and gaining more likes are often just vanity metrics. They're easily manipulated, and they don't necessarily correlate to the numbers that really matter, the ones that will help your organization achieve its goals. For example, your business may want to boost its brand awareness or make improvements to its customer service experience. If so, your goals for social media should align with and support those broader company-wide initiatives. Here are some examples of specific and measurable social media goals that you could set if you're trying to increase awareness around your brand. So once you've identified your goals for each of your channels, what metrics will you use to measure your success? There are so many metrics to choose from depending on what you're trying to achieve. Here are just a few to consider to tie to your goals, which we define in a blog post that we'll share in a few slides. Once you select the metrics you want to tie to your goals, you're all set, right? Well, unfortunately, that's not the case. See, every platform has their own definitions for these terms. Twitter and Facebook, for example, each define engagement rate differently. So what you end up having is an apples to oranges scenario, where you may know what your engagement rate is on Twitter, but not on Facebook, because the metrics are defined differently by each platform. You're unable to establish cross-platform benchmarks you can measure against. If you want to learn more about defining your social media goals and metrics, we wrote a whole post on this on the Bitly blog. So now you have your goals and have defined the metrics you'll use to measure your success. Now it's time to ask a critical question. How important is brand to you? Are you optimizing every touch point with your prospecting customers to put your brand front and center? And are you tracking all of your communications in a streamlined way? With Bitly, you can connect your account to a custom domain, which allows you to create what we call a branded link. With branded links, you replace the bit.ly with something that has your brand name in them. Our customers actually see 34% more click-throughs on branded links compared to bit.ly links. And the reason is simple. Branded links keep your brand front and center so your audience recognizes your links, trusts their source, and are more compelled to click them. Here are a few examples of some of our customers using branded links, such as ESPN, Amazon, and Nike sharing their links on their social media channels. The last point I want to make on the topic of setting your social media marketing goals and metrics is the importance of using the right products and tools. This is going to be key to your success. The right ones are going to help streamline your work processes, such as your posting and social media listening, bringing to light important insights that will help you measure how well your strategy is helping you reach your goals, and overall make your and your team's lives a lot easier. Bitly customers and social media often integrate the other tools in their tech stack with Bitly, so they can create short branded links without having to leave those platforms, while still keeping your link data all in one place within the Bitly platform. Here are just a few of the tools that we integrate with. If you'd like to learn more about how you can leverage Bitly for your social media marketing program, you can follow the link you see on your screen. It will take you to our website where you can learn about our different plans and get in touch with our team.
All right, thank you so much. So now it's time to hop into our Q&A, and we have seen quite a few questions come through. If we don't get to your question today, feel free to send your question to us on Twitter. We're at Bitly, and we would be more than happy to answer your question there. I'm going to just ask the first question that I see here, which is, do you recommend I repost the same content to different social media channels? That is a really great question, and I can answer. So, yes, absolutely. I think that it's more common than one might think for a person to follow a brand across multiple channels, right? So, when you repost your content across different ones, you're going to reach different people. And that's not to say that you don't need to alter your content to suit the channel. You don't necessarily want to just post the same, copy and images across each of your channels. You do want to make sure that you're making adjustments according to the type of content that you know works well on each channel. But absolutely, make sure that you're leveraging the content that you're creating or that your team is creating across multiple channels. And also keep in mind that even if someone is following your brand across different channels, which is great, it's still unlikely that they've seen every single one of your posts. So if you do post something on Twitter, for example, even if they follow you there, they may miss it. So posting it on Facebook or LinkedIn or whatever other channel you're on gives them another opportunity to see that content and for you to get in front of that individual. All right, so the next question is, where can I find case studies on how your customers are using Bitly?
So Tiffany, I can jump in and answer that one. We have an entire resource library on our website where you can access customer stories. Very simple, bit.ly/pages/resources. You can sort by case studies using the column on the left and then read whichever one applies to you.
Okay, so the next question I see is, how often should I be posting on social media? That's a really good question. I can actually take that one. When I look back at my time in social, one thing that I've always found to be consistent is the inconsistency of social algorithms. We've talked about how they change frequently. I don't think that there's a magical formula, unfortunately, but and that's because there are like way too many factors at play, such as your industry, your target audience, the channels that you're using. So my advice would be to analyze the data on your posts and make sure that you're really understanding how your content is being received by your audience. If your engagement rate is good, then keep sharing that kind of content. But don't stop testing. Test, whether or not posting at different times affects your engagement, whether or not posting more frequently impacts it, and make sure that you're continuously iterating over time. But unfortunately, no magical formula. Okay, and this is the final question that we can take today. How long does it take to set up branded Bitly links, and do I have to pay for an enterprise plan?
Yeah, and I can answer this one as well. So the process is really simple. You don't even have to leave the Bitly platform to do it. It's a one-step setup process, so you can be up and running in minutes. And you can set up a custom domain in Bitly on any of our paid plans, not just enterprise. You'll also get a free custom domain on any of these plans because we want our customers to take advantage of branded links.
All right, so that wraps up our Q&A. As I mentioned earlier, if we didn't get to your question, please feel free to tweet them at us. Again, we're at Bitly on Twitter. And while you're there, go ahead and give us a follow. We're also on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. And we share content like this webinar across those channels all of the time. So that brings us to the end of our presentation today. Thank you for joining our webinar on creating a social media strategy. We hope that you found it useful, and look out for the recording of today's session in your inboxes. I want to also thank Jessica for joining me on the webinar today, and we hope that you have a wonderful rest of your day. We'll see you next time. Thank you.